All right, it's June 14th right now. In about 6 days or so, there's supposed to be a purse bid where if two sides don't come to a deal, in this case, undisputed champion at 154 pounds, Jermell Charlo, and the who's claiming to be number one contender, Tszyu, who is the WBO mandatory. Take your time out, like the video, subscribe. I'm Tszyu Controversy with Fight View 360. Now you'll see right here that Boxing Scene has put an article out saying that Jermell Charlo Tszyu reached terms for a mandatory title fight to avoid the purse bid. Now that's a little bit of a surprise to me because personally I had my doubts like if it was really going to happen or not because we didn't know if Charlo was going to move to 160 or stay at 154. But this article was put out by a very respected boxing journalist over at Boxing Scene, Jake Donovan, CBS. Basically, the best way I can explain Jake Donovan to you, if you see these boxing YouTubers just like talking about sources and where they got the information from, they likely read one of his articles and didn't really cite the sources when they went and did their videos. Well, me, I put it up here on the screen for you guys, so therefore you just know I'm not just pulling this shit out my ass, but. Boxing Scene is owned by CBS. CBS Viacom, owns Showtime. Showtime is, where Jermell Charlo is fighting right now and undisputed champion. Tszyu in March defeated Terrell Goucher. He's been appointed mandatory since August of 2021. But later on that day, after that news, an article came out that Bakhram Murtazaliev's legal team challenges WBO claim that Charlo Tszyu is next. So, Big J, we've been talking about this for a while, wondering where Bakhram Murtazaliev has been and how come when on that undisputed um, fight card with Charlo Castano, they had Tszyu and Sebastian Findora. Sebastian Findora also a mandatory for Charlo in the future, WBC interim champion after defeating Erickson Lubin. But they had two of the mandatories there, and Israel Madrimov and Michelle Soro, the WBA. They're going to be sorting that out soon, sometime in the next few weeks or so. But and they're not affiliated with Showtime. But Bakhram Murtazaliev, who's been the mandatory since 2019, correct? He wasn't there, and
Yeah,
yet he fought on Tszyu's undercard against Terrell Goucher in a dark match.
he did.
He's been
He
since
did.
November 2019. He's been mandatory.
Yeah, he has. So yeah, I mean, he's been mandatory for an extremely long time,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, I just can't believe that you know the IBF hasn't actually ordered him to fight, and the WBA got in first. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a little bit confusing because we know how strict the IBF are when it comes to mandatories. But I mean, I don't have a problem with Murtazaliev going first. I mean, he's waited a very long time to get this done. And Tszyu just has to wait in line. I mean, he was never the first in line. We've said that how many times, how many videos have we stated that fact, that
Yeah.
he was never first in line. He was always second. And Murtazaliev needs to get his shot before Tszyu does. But then again, Murtazaliev needs to actually come to the party and say, well, I want my shot, instead of just sitting back in the background waiting for someone to tell him, okay, now you can have your shot. So I don't understand why he's not being more aggressive about it.
Yeah, well, let me read this. It says, Tszyu and No Limit Boxing, his local promoter in Australia, entered a multi-fight deal agreement with PBC earlier this year. His debut was to come on the undercard of the originally scheduled March 19th rematch between Charlo Castano. The event was postponed. To move on, let me see. A protest was filed by Tszyu and his team required his responding to a WBO show cause letter just to retain the title and keep the rematch intact with Charlo. Basically talking about how Tszyu was pretty much mandatory. So I'm gonna move on. Let me read this part right here. Okay. So a new date was granted for both that fight, Charlo Castano, and Tszyu's US debut, which came as the March 26th Showtime main event. Tszyu was also ringside for Charlo's win over Castaño, after which he insisted that Charlo had 120 days to either fight him or vacate the title. The threat came at a time when Charlo was already committed in writing to next facing Murtazaliev, as argued by Murtazaliev's team. Okay, then this is a quote. Important to understand is that the ranking organizations have had a rational order for mandatory bouts. Argue English. This is English. I don't see his first name, but he is supposed to be Murtazaliev's legal team. That rotation order came from a case in which I represented Evander Holyfield in a Chancery Division chase in which Mike Tyson attempted to block Holyfield Foreman bout, where there were conflicting assertions of rights by different ranking organizations. Judge Amos Sanders informed that one of the rogue organizations that the champion could not split himself and the equity judge, legal mumbo jumbo. But basically, it's saying that the organizations, WBC, WBA, IBF, WBO, have an order in which they do things. And pretty much what I'm gathering from this, as we talked about, Big J, Tim Tszyu and his team has been trying to jump the line. You see what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah, they've been trying to jump the line for a very long time. And then you've got Tim Tszyu saying stuff that is totally ridiculous, that he was being mandatory for 2 years, which is utter bullshit. Then 2 years ago, then he fight Jeff Horn.
Well, here's the next quote. It said, Murtazaliev became mandatory in the IBF following his November 2nd, 2019 fight with Jorge Fortea. 2.5 years ago, English reminded the room. Tim Tszyu first shows up in the WBO rankings in September of 2019 at number 12 after defeating Dwight Ritchie, who was not ranked. In July 2020, Tim Tszyu was ranked number 9. In August 2020, he moved up to number 2 after defeating Jeff Horn, who was ranked number 5 in the July 2020 rankings. Tszyu first appears at number 1 in January 2021 after defeating Bowen Morgan, who is not ranked. The next time Tszyu fights a ranked fighter is November 2021 when he defeats Takashi Inoue. That is when he earned his mandatory. This is 2 years after Murtazaliev. Thus can be no question who has precedence over the rotation system. And there you go. That makes sense. Now this is the last quote right here. The WBO has never, to my knowledge, violated the rotation system, a system set up before the WBO was even formed, but which the WBO has adopted, noted English in his best effort, providing an olive branch. The immediate reason for this letter is that the WBO has reportedly told journalists that a contract had been reached for Charlo to fight Tszyu. I learned this after I spoke to you at the Boxing Hall of Fame induction ceremonies. Mr. Brown of TGB has denied the accuracy of this. So basically, it sounds like some dodgy shit's been going on with the WBO trying to really shoehorn Tim Tszyu in there as the mandatory.
Yeah, well, there's no if, buts, or maybes. It's mandatory for the WBO title. That's accurate, right?
But he's not next.
He's not next for Charlo. I mean, he's next for Charlo's WBO belt, but he's not next for Charlo. And people that understand boxing politics will understand that, the IBF goes first because, Murtazaliev was named mandatory back in November of 2019. Tszyu wasn't named mandatory until 2 years later, and then Fendora was named mandatory 2 months ago, if that.
Yep.
When was he named mandatory?
Yep. And that is the rotation, and the WBA mandatory is set to be decided sometime in the next month or so.
Yeah, well, WBA, that's no one from the WBA is going to get a title shot of Charlo for at least 2 years. So don't
exactly, but yeah, that's the rotation. It's supposed to be Murtazaliev next, then Tszyu, then Sebastian Fendora.
That's correct. I mean, and why these? I mean, all these blokes are affiliated with PBC. Why don't they just make a mini tournament, make these blokes fight each other? I don't understand.
Yeah, and that's one thing that's been going on with PBC for a while. Even when we look at those guys, like why a lot of them just wait so long or just don't fight each other at all. That's just we can talk all day about that. But now things get interesting because there's supposed to be a purse bid on the 20th.
On June 20th, yeah, exactly. June 20th is supposed to be a purse bid, which is. Well, today's the 14th, so that's like 6 days away.
Yeah, so basically, who gets sued, or just Charlo just vacates the IBF, boom, problem solved. But you would think with the way things are going that maybe I'm wondering if there was some type of agreement for Murtazaliev, because from my understanding, that's why he was taking all those step aside deals, that they kept promising him you're going to get a shot at Charlo. But if you look at it, they wasn't even promoting him to get a shot at Charlo because he was fighting in dark matches.
Exactly.
So that could have been a red
Murtazaliev,
flag to his team right there. You know, that wait a minute, they're not even putting us on TV or even saying our name.
Murtazaliev's team does have a role to play in this because they've allowed all this bullshit.
They did.
So you can't, you know, the blame doesn't solely fall on any one person's or entity's shoulder. It's like, well, hang on a second. You agreed to all these step aside. You agreed to all these dark matches. You agreed to all this easy money. What do you expect was going to happen?
Yeah.
You know, you'd sit in a corner and we throw you free money, and you know, you'd expect, you know, if you think things were going to go 100% your way. That's wishful thinking. So at least Tszyu, to his credit, has been active and been fighting and been, you know, on pay-per-views and all that sort of jazz. You've got to give him that. So even though the level of competition has not been what it should be, at least he's out there, you know, getting into it. So like Murtazaliev, who's quite happy to sit in the dark corner and do bugger all. So, but anyway, I mean, if Murtazaliev doesn't get his shot because Tszyu does, I would not be happy with that. You know, because Murtazaliev is first. But then again, if Murtazaliev agrees to it or something happens where they can just shut him to the side and he walks straight, there's nothing he can do about it, then that's just tough titties for him. So, which is unfortunate. But Murtazaliev should be getting his shot next.
Well, something's telling me that they're probably going to go on with the Tszyu fight, you know, and vacate the IBF. You know, that's what I'm thinking, you know, is going to happen and maybe Charlo will try to double back around and accept and, you know, try to fight Murtazaliev again. That could be, you know, what could happen, but I highly doubt it. Something's telling me, you know, that he's going to drop that IBF unless PBC has some type of plan, you know, for Charlo where they want him to, as we talked about, to stay at 154 because that's where the money's going to be.
Exactly. I mean, I'd see Charlo dropping the WBA long before he dropped the IBF. The IBF's more important than the WBA.
So you think he would, but the more money would be in Tszyu than Murtazaliev because they haven't pumped up Murtazaliev at all.
No, true. Well, it also depends on where they're going to stage the Charlo Tszyu fight. I mean, Tszyu's gone on record saying he's more than happy to fight him in the States and all that sort of good stuff. With everything going on, everything going on in Australia at the moment, we've just had an undisputed fight. Eddie Hearn's announcing his September card shortly, sometime this week. What else is going on? Liam Paro's in the mix for a shot at Josh Taylor. There's Australian boxing is very, very busy at the moment. So it might be in Tzew's best favour to actually fight over in the States. Remember, Charlo holds the keys, and from my understanding, you know, like early rumors are that it's going to be where Charlo wanted to be, and likely in his hometown. Well, that makes perfect sense. So, you know, what's he from? Where's he? What part of Texas is he from?
Houston.
Dallas?
No, they're in Houston.
Oh, Houston. Yeah. Okay.
Spencer's in Dallas.
Spencer's in Dallas. I knew one of them was from Dallas. Where's that ATT stadium?
AT&T. That's Dallas.
Okay. What's the stadium in Houston?
I'm not sure what it was called. I'm not sure what it's called. Let me do a little quick search.
Is that where the Rockets play?
It's where the Rockets play. No, but they've had a new name.
All right.
You know, those NBA arenas, you know, they changed the Toyota Center. It's still the same. It's been that for about, 10 years or so, if not. You know, the Toyota Center.
All right, I see.
You know, now the question is, will Charlo be able to fill those seats? Who?
How many's there?
That's going to be about 17,000. 18. Yeah.
Shit, you would think that would be that high?
I don't know, man. I like Charlo, pound for pound and everything, but they've been having some issues selling some tickets. And that's the rumor with what happened. Now understand, fans. Ladies and gentlemen, fans of the boxers. I'm just giving you the news. I'm not, these are not my personal opinions, not all the time, but I'm just giving you the news. So basically the rumors are that Charlo, Jermell Charlo versus Slusky, which was supposed to be this weekend, wasn't doing well at all. ticket sales. So this back injury has popped up for Jermell Charlo. He was supposed to fight this weekend.
Yeah, but Jamal's not Jermell. Jermell's a hell of a lot more popular than
That
what
is
Jermell
true. That is very, very true. But but we'll
And
go ahead.
And if all fails, they'll sell out McDonald's Stadium in Newcastle, 25,000 people, piss easy.
Yeah, but it's something about Al Haney. He just, he rarely sends his fighters overseas unless he really has to. Like, like when he sent over Errol Spence to fight Kell Brook, because he had no choice. It was the mandatory. And then when he sent over Gervonta Davis over to the UK. But he rarely, and PBC, even though they're number one here in the States regarding like the biggest boxing stable, and have the the network, the multiple network deals, still they don't have the best track record or pull or stroke overseas. Like they rarely work with anyone else. When it comes to
they wouldn't need it. Main Event would do it all for them. I mean,
yeah, that's true. But I can't
imagine. Tim Tszyu undisputed in Newcastle.
But see, I can't imagine him, like PBC and Al Heyman and Charlo wanting to go over to Australia. I couldn't imagine it. But I'm not doubting it wouldn't do big.
No, it would. It would do. Tim Tszyu undisputed in Newcastle. The 27,000, I think it seats. You'd probably get another 4 or 5 on the actual footy ground. Because they put like Marvel, they put the boxing ring in the middle. And they'd fit, they fit at least 3,000 or 4,000 people on the actual footy ground itself, and then there's the stadium that surrounds it. So, I'm sure they do the same thing at basketball courts. They would sell out Newcastle 27,000, 30,000 people, no problem. It's Tim Tszyu. He's very popular in Newcastle. You've got to give him that. So,
all right, well, we're just going to have to wait and see how things play out. By the way, that that WBA mandatory is going to be on between Ismail Madrimov and Michelle Sora. That's going to be on July the 9th. So the current rotation right now is it is supposed to be IBF first for Charlo as far as mandatory defenses. IBF, then then WBO, then WBC, then WBA. If he decides to stay. But those right there, all can be, some significant, fights in my opinion. The Fedora fight for PBC would be big, and if he fights Murtazaliev in October, November or so, that can be a fight to where, that can be wrote off as like, well, a homecoming fight. It's a mandatory title defense. They've done that plenty of times with boxers where a boxer would win a championship, whether it's 1 or 2, and then they would have a homecoming fight, I guess you would say somewhat of an easy touch. Now, Murtazaliev is not an easy touch, and I would give him a better chance than Tim Tszyu from what I've seen from him. But overall, you also have to look at the level of competition, of both. And then, he can fight Tim Tszyu in April or so of next year. March.
Would you consider... Sorry, no, you go ahead.
I would say March, March or April of next year, or March, really, they can go for Tim Tszyu. It's nothing wrong with Tim Tszyu, like waiting his shot, and getting some bigger names under his belt to help build up the fight. Like Tony Patterson, try to go after somebody like that. Hell, if you want a championship so bad, then go after Sebastian Fendora.
Exactly.
Maybe Fendora would come over to Australia, and then you would definitely be Charlo's mandatory for 2 sanctioning bodies.
Exactly.
That would be some big time shit if he did that.
Definitely. And
your
with
closing thoughts?
I honestly think that. Would you consider Murtazaliev to be a victory lap for Charlo? I mean, you think he's like? It probably would be like I wouldn't say an easy win, but a win that he would get.
What against against Murtazaliev?
What would you see? Yeah, Charlo versus Murtazaliev. What's your thoughts on that fight?
Something.
KO 10 rounds.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure. I have to watch a little bit more footage, but from what I've gathered, he is more skilled than Tim Tszyu, and maybe the team knows that already. And they're not really interested in him. But as it stands right now, looking at the competition, he's been fighting on dark matches. And I have his box rec up here on the screen. His last 3 fights, which was those step asides. Remember, he fought Jorge Fortea. That was in November. You know, he was 20-1, and then the last 3 step-asides were Manny Woods, 16-9, Kerry Gregg, 16-5, Ahmed Chinko, 18-7. So, you know, the level of competition. And then before that, he doesn't have, you know, Tszyu does have the better resume.
Mm, mm. Yeah, because at least Tszyu got, what, 1 ex-champion and 2 ex-title contenders on his resume.
Exactly. So, but this guy is supposed to be, like, this guy's supposed to be good.
Mm,
you know, but he's
but,
with
the
the wrong promotional company. Main Event is pretty much 1 foot out the door in boxing. This is Main Event,
That's not
the
the
American promotional company founded by Lou Duva and now run by Kathy Duva.
Yeah, not to be confused with Main Event Australia.
Correct.
I mean, I see probably out of all the contenders, probably Fendora giving Charlo the most problems. I mean, I don't see him getting Murtazaliev or Tszyu being any real problem for him. I've stated that a number of times.
Yeah.
I've said on the record that Charlo would clean up Tszyu, you know, in 6 rounds, no problem. So I think Fendora would probably give him a bit of more of a problem because that kid just seems. There's just something about him. He's so bloody awkward. He's so tall. I don't understand why someone just doesn't bust that
what
guy
we've seen is that he's got inside game for him to be, you know, like so tall. Because, you know, like with them long arms, you know, sometimes you can smother yourself, but he seems to be pretty good with it.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, because he beat Lubin up with the inside game.
He did, didn't he? Bust his eye socket or something?
Yeah, broke his face.
Break his nose.
Broke his face.
Yeah, so Fendora certainly nothing to sneeze at. I mean, I thought he would be an easy beat, but he's proven me dead wrong because he's beaten everyone.
Yeah, and he's only 24 years old. So you know he can keep improving. But closing thoughts.
Well, we're just going to have to wait out to see. I mean, I'd rather see Murtazaliev fight Charlo than Tszyu. Tszyu can wait his turn. But if Tszyu gets his shot, yeah, great. But do I see Tszyu winning? No. No, I don't. If he wins, great, fantastic. Couldn't be happier, but I don't see it happening.
And that's the thing. Well, we're gonna hear something definitely next week. You know, we should be hearing something because the purse bid is supposed to be on Monday. You know, so I'm wondering if the IBF, you know, or maybe Murtazaliev's team are going to try to sue because it seems like they're gearing up for legal action. But it's like, who are they going to try to sue? A sanctioning body? Or, you know, because you would think that the IBF would have to contact the WBO and say, no, wait a minute, you're violating the rotation. We're supposed to be first. So I'm interested definitely to see how this story is going to develop.
Well, it depends what contracts have been signed.
That's true.
That's the answer.
We got to know what's going on with Murtazaliev because if he's taking those step-aside agreements, you would think that maybe, now I'm not a lawyer or anything, I'm just putting it out there. Was it a verbal agreement that they gave him or was it in writing? Okay, you fight on these undercards, do it for us, you're going to get Charlo. You know, that's what I'm interested to hear.
Who in their right mind would agree to a verbal agreement? You want it right?
Yeah, we've seen it happen in boxing before, but, you know, for him, because, you know, he's been getting on these cards, so there's some type of agreement that's been there. You know, he's not just fighting.
Oh, there has to be. Yeah, there has to be.
And you got to think, now he's wasted these 2+ years of your time. Like, and boxers don't get that type of time back, you know, and then it makes him look bad because he was fighting lower level competition in hopes that he would get a bigger fight. It's crazy. You know, and as you said, his hands team, you know, his team's hands are not clean in this.
No, not at all. Not at all. I mean, making your fighter take 3 step-aside agreements against, let's be honest, real easy competition where, what didn't he knock one bloke out in like 1 round or something? I mean, that's not a fight. That's just playing.
Yeah,
so,
the last guy he fought on the Tszyu Gaucher undercard knocked him out in 1.
Exactly. That's not a that's not a fight. That's not getting rounds in.
And that fight was while this is even what's crazier. That fight was while Tszyu was at the post-fight press conference. So which means all the media wasn't even there to watch him. That's crazy.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly. So
his team agreed to that crap. So, you know, I'm just interested to see how it's going to play out.
As am I.
But all right. Take your time out, guys. If you haven't, like the video, subscribe, and I'm going to tell you right now, it is here. I was sick this weekend, if you're wondering what's going on with my eye. I have a long history of asthma. Was out in the field a lot last week, going to school functions and shit, and basically I can't do it like I used to. But yeah, it's here. The podcast is coming. Also on Facebook, the Fight View 360 boxing group, as you can see right here on the page, on the screen, is being built and it is on the way. We're going to be offering you things on that Facebook group and on our Reddit group, which is going to be called the same thing, that you won't be getting anywhere else in boxing groups from what I've seen so far. Now, it's still a beginning project, but I'm going to be putting all the links of this stuff down in the description box when I revamp things later on this week. Basically, the channel's rebranding again. This is me doing my final push, like really in boxing and really trying to, you know, follow through with the things that I started a few years ago, you know, several years ago, actually, to where now I have the resources and time to be really consistent with it. So yeah, the podcast is going to be launching at the beginning of the month. I'm finalizing the artwork. I've been looking at this, I've been using this, app and a website called Pixby, where I'm picking all of the copyright-free music. Like, we're really in the trenches. So thank you for all your support. Check out our website, FightView360, down below in the description box. I did fix the link, and it heads right to our page, which has rankings, news, ticket info, and we're going to be also putting the podcast and exclusive content on the website as well. My social media and Big J's social media platforms are down below in the description box. After this video, the next Australian boxing video we're going to be doing is coverage of the Justice Haney versus Sam Goodall fight, which is actually a day from now. Justice Haney and was it Justice Haney and who? Joe Goodall. There you go.
Joseph Goodall. Sam Goodall's a smaller fighter.
Got you. Joseph Goodall. All right, they're not related, are they? Yeah, well, we'll talk about that later. All right, I keep getting them confused. But, all right, our social media handles are right down below in the description box. Take your time out, like the video, subscribe. Thanks for watching.